Hello, and welcome to History at Bedtime. In the spring of 146 BCE, after 6 days of fighting through streets that no longer looked like streets, Publius Cornelius Scipio Aemilianus climbed high enough to see Carthage burning beneath him. The city had resisted for 3 years. Its outer defenses had been broken, its military harbor penetrated, its ships destroyed, and its neighborhoods reduced one house at a time. Roman soldiers had crossed from roofs to upper rooms because the lanes below were blocked by bodies and rubble. Walls were torn open so that one building could be entered from another. Fires advanced through timber, plaster, cloth, oil, and stores of grain. People who had hidden in cellars emerged into smoke and steel. Others remained where they were and died when the floors above them collapsed. Now the last organized defenders had withdrawn to the Bursa, the high citadel at the center of the city. Thousands surrendered after hunger, and exhaustion left no other choice. They came down to be counted, separated, and sold. The Carthaginian commander Hasdrubal received a promise of personal safety and left the temple where the final resistance had gathered. According to a later account, his wife watched him go, condemned his surrender, killed their children, and entered the flames. Whether every detail occurred as later writers described it, the story preserved the horror of a city discovering that courage could no longer change the result. Scipio had achieved what Roman senators had demanded. Carthage, Rome's oldest and most feared rival, would cease to exist as an independent city. Yet as the flames rose, he did not celebrate. The Greek historian Polybius stood near him. Polybius had known Roman generals, studied Roman institutions, and watched this war from inside Scipio's circle. He later remembered the commander weeping openly. Scipio quoted Homer's words about the day when sacred Troy would perish with Priam and his people. Then he confessed that he was thinking of Rome. The moment has survived because it interrupts the expected ending. Rome had won. Carthage had lost. The victor looked upon the defeated city and saw not proof that Rome would last forever, but proof that no city did. The destruction below him had taken 118 years to reach its final form. When the conflict began in 264 BCE, Rome and Carthage were not ancient enemies trapped in an unavoidable struggle. They had made treaties with one another. They had faced common dangers. Each knew the other as a powerful but distant partner whose interests overlapped without yet becoming impossible to reconcile. The First War began through a dispute neither government had designed as the beginning of a century of destruction. It began at a narrow strait, with a band of soldiers who had stolen a city and then asked two larger powers to protect them from the consequences. The question running through all 3 Punic Wars is therefore not simply why Rome defeated Carthage. It is how 2 republics that could negotiate, trade, and cooperate entered a conflict that neither could finish easily. Why Rome kept fighting after losses that would have destroyed most ancient states. Why Hannibal could defeat Roman armies without defeating Rome. And why, decades after Carthage had ceased to be dangerous, the Romans returned to destroy it. To answer those questions, we must leave the burning city and travel backward to a time when its harbors were full, its walls unbroken, and its name inspired admiration as often as fear. Carthage stood on the coast of North Africa, near the site of modern Tunis, where a peninsula reached into the central Mediterranean. Phoenician settlers from the eastern city of Tyre had established a community there centuries earlier. Later tradition gave the foundation a precise date, and a royal exile named Alyssa, or Dido, who escaped her brother, crossed the sea, and obtained as much land as an ox hide could enclose. She cut the hide into thin strips and surrounded the hill that became the Bursa. The story is legend, shaped by Greek and Roman writers and transformed most famously through the tragedy of Dido and Aeneas. Yet it preserves something important about Carthage's identity. The city belonged to a maritime world. Its language, religion, writing, and commercial habits connected it to Phoenician communities spread along the coasts of North Africa, Sicily, Sardinia, Iberia, and the islands between them. Carthage did not create a sea empire by drawing one continuous border around conquered territory. It built relationships with ports, settlements, subject communities, allied cities, local rulers, and regions from which grain, metals, timber, salt, fish, animals, and human labor could be obtained. Merchant ships moved between familiar anchorages. Knowledge of winds and currents passed through generations. Contracts, family partnerships, religious bonds, and naval force supported one another. The city itself grew wealthy enough to astonish visitors. Its harbors became symbols of organized power. The commercial basin received cargo vessels. A separate circular military harbor, developed in the city's later history, contained covered spaces for ships and a central island from which naval activity could be supervised. Warehouses, workshops, temples, markets, and dense residential districts climbed from the shore toward the Bursa. Carthage was not ruled by a king in the centuries of the Punic Wars. Its political system was republican, though not democratic in the modern sense. Elected officials called Sophites performed important civic functions. Councils of wealthy and experienced men shaped policy. Generals could hold long commands, but were watched by political institutions capable of punishing failure. A popular assembly sometimes decided questions when leading bodies disagreed. Greek observers compared aspects of the system with Sparta and Rome. They admired its stability while criticizing the influence of wealth. Powerful families competed through commerce, office, military command, and networks of clients. No single description captures the balance across every period, but the city was not a merchant company wearing the mask of a state. It was a large, complex republic whose citizens understood public service, faction, law, and collective identity. Its armies were equally complex. Carthage often recruited soldiers from outside the citizen body, including Libyans, Numidians, Iberians, Gauls, Balearic Islanders, and Greeks. Some served for pay. Others fought as subjects, allies, or contingents provided through political obligation. Carthaginian citizens also fought, especially when the city itself was threatened, and an elite citizen unit appears in major battles. The common statement that Rome used citizens while Carthage used only mercenaries is too simple. The difference lay more in political organization. Rome's military system reached deeply into the citizen population and the allied communities of Italy. Carthage's overseas power allowed it to assemble armies with varied skills from an enormous region, but those armies did not all possess the same relationship to the city. A Numidian cavalryman, a Libyan infantryman, an Iberian warrior, and a Carthaginian officer could fight brilliantly together under a commander they trusted. Their loyalty might rest upon pay, alliance, coercion, family power, promised reward, or personal devotion rather than one shared citizenship. This diversity produced some of the finest armies of the ancient world. It also required commanders capable of holding the pieces together. Rome in the early 3rd century BCE looked very different. It stood inland on the Tiber, with a port at Ostia connecting it to the sea, but with power rooted in fields, roads, colonies, and alliances across Italy. The Republic had spent generations fighting neighboring peoples, surviving invasions, recovering from defeats, and expanding through a mixture of war and incorporation. By 264 BCE, Rome dominated most of the Italian peninsula south of the Po Valley. That dominance did not mean every community had become identical or every inhabitant had become a Roman citizen. Italy was organized through layers of status. Some communities possessed full citizenship. Others had citizenship without voting rights. Latin colonies occupied strategic positions and provided manpower. Allied cities retained local institutions, but supplied soldiers under treaty. This network was unequal and often resented. Rome had defeated many of the peoples now required to fight beside it. Yet the system offered local elites a place within Roman power, shared rewards from future campaigns, and a structure that could survive the defeat of one army because another could be raised from a broad population. Rome's annual magistrates and debating senate appeared less efficient than the command of a single ruler. Consuls changed each year. Political rivalry interfered with strategy. Citizens argued in assemblies. Generals feared prosecution when they returned home. But the Republic contained many men trained to command, administer, negotiate, and continue after another man died. Its strength was not that Romans never made mistakes. They made them repeatedly. Its strength was that mistakes did not always end the state. The similarities between the two republics made their conflict more dangerous, not less. Neither government depended upon one hereditary monarch whose death could automatically reverse policy. Both contained councils, magistrates, assemblies, family competition, religious authority, and traditions through which collective decisions gained legitimacy. A defeated general might be recalled or punished, but the state continued. Treaties therefore bound political communities able to remember injury beyond one reign. Both also governed unequal networks. Rome demanded troops from Italian allies. Carthage demanded taxes, soldiers, or obedience from Libyan communities and negotiated with allied peoples overseas. The citizen body at the center enjoyed privileges financed partly by those farther from power. War tested whether those outer communities would continue supplying the center or use invasion as an opportunity to escape it. The difference between Roman land power and Carthaginian sea power was real, but should not be made absolute. Carthage controlled fertile African territory and fought major land wars in Sicily and Iberia. Rome possessed coastal allies and ships before 264 BCE. What changed was scale. Each republic was forced to become more like the opponent in order to survive. Rome learned fleets, provinces, and long overseas command. Carthage expanded deeper territorial power in Iberia and relied upon commanders whose armies developed personal loyalty over many years. The wars did not merely reveal existing strengths. They transformed the states using them. Political debate within both cities also meant that strategy was never the thought of a single mind. Roman consuls wanted glory within annual terms, while the Senate sought continuity. Popular assemblies could approve war and elect commanders. Carthaginian councils weighed commercial risk, military expense, and the influence of great families. Decisions later described as Rome choosing or Carthage refusing were produced through arguments whose losing voices are mostly lost. Religion entered those decisions without standing apart from practical politics. Sacrifices, omens, sacred envoys, oaths, and treaty gods made commitments visible and violations dangerous. A commander who ignored signs could be condemned after defeat. A victorious one could claim divine favor had confirmed policy. The Mediterranean itself connected the rivals before it divided them. Carthaginian goods reached Italian markets. Roman and Etruscan traders had long dealt with Punic ports. Earlier treaties attempted to define where Roman ships could go, how trade would be supervised, and how allies would be treated. These agreements show neither city discovered the other in Sicily. The decision at Messana therefore crossed a known boundary. Rome was not simply helping petitioners. It was testing whether agreements built for a smaller world could survive Rome's arrival as master of Italy. Between Rome and Carthage lay Sicily. The island was large, fertile, wealthy, and divided. Greek cities had flourished there for centuries, especially Syracuse in the east. Carthaginian influence dominated much of the west. Local communities, Greek tyrants, Carthaginian commanders, and changing alliances had produced generations of conflict. Sicily was close enough to Italy that fires on the shore could be imagined across the water, yet it belonged to a political world Rome had not previously tried to govern. At the northeastern corner stood Messana, modern Messina, controlling the narrow strait between Sicily and Italy. The city had been seized by mercenaries from Campania who called themselves Mamertines, sons of Mars. They had originally entered as hired soldiers, then murdered male inhabitants, took property and families, and turned the city into a base for raiding. Their violence eventually brought retaliation from Syracuse. A young Syracusan commander named Hiero defeated them and threatened Messana. The Mamertines searched for protection. One group appealed to Carthage. A Carthaginian force entered the citadel. Another group appealed to Rome. The request placed the Roman Republic before an uncomfortable choice. Only a few years earlier, Rome had punished similar Campanian soldiers who had seized Rhegium on the Italian side of the strait. To protect the Mamertines now would expose obvious hypocrisy. It would also carry Roman arms into Sicily and risk confrontation with Carthage. Refusal had dangers too. If Carthage controlled Messana, its fleet and garrison would stand directly across from Italy. Roman allies in the south might wonder whether the Republic could protect the strait. Ambitious citizens could also see the wealth of Sicily and the opportunity for command. Ancient accounts describe hesitation in the Senate and a decision carried to the popular assembly. Economic hope, strategic fear, moral discomfort, and the culture of expansion all contributed. The Romans did not vote to begin a 23-year naval war. They voted to send help across a few miles of water. A Roman commander crossed the strait. The Mamertines removed or expelled the Carthaginian garrison. Carthage punished its officer for surrendering the position. Hiero of Syracuse and Carthage, recently enemies, cooperated against the new Roman presence. The three-sided crisis narrowed into a larger confrontation. Rome had entered Sicily. Carthage intended to make it leave. The first campaigns did not reveal what the war would become. Roman forces relieved Messana and fought both Syracusan and Carthaginian troops. Hiero soon reconsidered his position. Syracuse could not easily endure conflict against Rome and Carthage at once, and Rome offered terms allowing him to retain his kingdom. He became a Roman ally and remained one for decades. The agreement was one of the quiet decisions upon which great wars turn. Rome gained a secure partner in eastern Sicily, access to supplies, and a ruler who understood the island. Carthage lost the possibility of a united Sicilian front. The conflict continued, but Rome no longer fought as a stranger without a base. The Roman army moved against Agrigentum, an important city on the southern coast used by Carthaginian forces. The siege lasted months. Tens of thousands of soldiers, laborers, inhabitants, and camp followers consumed the surrounding countryside. Disease, hunger, and interruption of supply threatened besieger and besieged alike. A Carthaginian relief army arrived with elephants and cavalry. After hard fighting, the Romans prevailed in the field, but the Carthaginian garrison escaped while Roman troops were distracted. Agrigentum was taken and plundered. The victory showed that Rome could win on Sicilian land. It did not end the war because Carthage did not depend upon holding one inland city. Its fleet could move troops, protect coastal strongholds, raid Italy, and avoid a decisive battle on Roman terms. As long as Carthage controlled the sea, Roman armies in Sicily remained attached to a narrow crossing and vulnerable coast. Rome therefore decided to build a fleet large enough to challenge a power with centuries of maritime experience. Later tradition made this decision appear almost miraculous. The Romans supposedly found a wrecked Carthaginian ship, copied it, and trained rowers on benches placed on land while hundreds of vessels were constructed. The details may have been simplified because Rome and its Italian allies already possessed ships and seafaring communities. Greek cities in southern Italy had naval knowledge. The Republic was not discovering water for the first time. What remains extraordinary is the scale and speed. A fleet required more than timber shaped into hulls. It required rope, sailcloth, bronze fittings, pitch, oars, food, harbors, commanders, skilled craftsmen, and enormous crews able to row in coordination. A quinquereme may have carried roughly 300 rowers and additional marines and sailors. 100 ships therefore demanded tens of thousands of men before one soldier boarded an enemy deck. Many rowers were citizens and allies. Naval service could be exhausting, cramped, wet, and dangerous without the social prestige attached to legionary combat. Men sat in ordered levels pulling heavy oars to commands they had to obey precisely. A mistake by one group affected others. Heat, thirst, sickness, splintered wood, and panic inside a damaged hull could kill before an enemy was seen clearly. The Romans also sought a way to make lack of naval experience less decisive. They fitted some ships with a boarding device later known as the corvus, a heavy bridge that could be raised and dropped upon an opposing deck. A spike helped secure the ships together. Roman marines then crossed and fought at close quarters. At Mylae in 260 BCE, the device helped the consul Gaius Duilius win Rome's first major naval victory. Carthaginian captains accustomed to maneuver suddenly found their ships locked to platforms carrying Roman infantry. A contest of ramming, turning, and seamanship became a series of small land battles upon moving wood. Rome celebrated. Duilius received a triumph, and a monument displayed the beaks of captured ships. The victory announced that Carthaginian expertise could be challenged through adaptation. The corvus did not solve every problem. Its weight may have made ships less stable in rough conditions, though the extent of that danger remains debated. It also required an enemy to approach within reach. Carthaginian commanders learned. Naval war remained a struggle of weather, intelligence, supply, experience, and money. Both republics discovered that Sicily could absorb armies without producing conclusion. Cities changed hands. Raids damaged coasts. Garrisons waited behind walls. Each year consuls arrived with limited time to gain distinction. Carthaginian commanders were expected to preserve positions and avoid politically dangerous failure. Victory in one place shifted pressure elsewhere. Roman leaders began considering a more ambitious solution: invade Africa and threaten Carthage itself. In 256 BCE, enormous fleets met near Cape Ecnomus off southern Sicily. Ancient numbers may be exaggerated, yet the battle was among the largest naval engagements of antiquity. Roman transports and warships carried an invasion army. Carthaginian commanders attempted to draw parts of the Roman formation away and attack from several directions. The sea filled with ships turning, colliding, boarding, and signaling through noise and confusion. The Romans won and crossed to Africa under the consuls Marcus Attilius Regulus and Lucius Manlius Vulso. The arrival placed war upon land Carthage considered its own. Roman soldiers saw fertile fields, estates, villages, orchards, and herds supporting the city's wealth. They plundered and captured inhabitants. Towns surrendered. Carthaginian forces struggled to use cavalry and elephants effectively in broken ground chosen by commanders who feared Roman infantry. After initial success, one consul returned to Italy, while Regulus remained with a reduced army. He defeated another Carthaginian force and advanced until the city faced serious danger. Carthage sought negotiations. Regulus offered terms so harsh that acceptance would have reduced the republic to helpless dependence. The Carthaginians chose to continue fighting. At this moment, a Spartan mercenary commander named Xanthippus entered the story. Ancient sources credit him with recognizing that Carthage had used its strengths badly. On open ground, its cavalry and elephants could operate before Roman infantry closed. The army was reorganized and confidence restored. Near the Bagradas River, the Carthaginians deployed elephants across the front, cavalry on the wings, and infantry behind. The Roman formation endured the first impact, but was overwhelmed when cavalry returned against its flanks and rear. Most of the invasion army was killed or captured. Regulus became a prisoner. The story later told in Rome turned Regulus into a model of duty. According to tradition, he was sent home to urge peace or arrange exchange, advised the Senate to continue the war, and returned voluntarily to Carthage, where he was tortured to death. The details were elaborated over generations and cannot all be accepted as secure. What mattered to Roman memory was the image of a citizen placing the state above his own survival. The immediate reality was simpler. The invasion had failed. Rome sent a fleet to rescue survivors. It defeated Carthaginian ships near Cape Hermium and gathered the remaining troops. Then, while returning along the southern coast of Sicily, commanders ignored warnings about dangerous seasonal weather. A storm struck. Ancient accounts described ships driven upon rocks and shore, hulls breaking, men drowning within sight of land, and wreckage covering the coast. The loss may have included hundreds of vessels and tens of thousands of lives. Even if numbers were magnified, the disaster was catastrophic. Carthage had not destroyed this fleet. The sea had. Rome built another. That decision reveals the character of the First Punic War more clearly than any tactical invention. Timber had to be cut again. Money had to be found again. Crews had to be recruited again. Families who had already lost men saw another levy. Allies were asked for more ships, grain, sailors, and taxes. The Republic treated catastrophe not as a final judgment, but as a demand for replacement. Another fleet was later lost in storms near Cape Palinurus. Naval confidence rose and collapsed. At times, Rome reduced its maritime effort and returned to land operations. Carthage, though more experienced at sea, also faced financial strain and political limits. Neither side possessed endless resources, but both feared that accepting peace would make every earlier sacrifice useless. In western Sicily, Carthaginian strongholds such as Lilybaeum and Drepana resisted. Lilybaeum was protected by walls, harbor, and skilled sailors capable of slipping through blockade. Roman siege works advanced while storms, raids, and supply problems broke them. At Drepana in 249 BCE, the consul Publius Claudius Pulcher attempted a surprise naval attack. Roman religious custom required observation of sacred chickens before battle. When the birds reportedly refused to eat, the omen was unfavorable. Later tradition accused Pulcher of throwing them into the sea and declaring that if they would not eat, they could drink. Whether the line is exact or not, his attack ended in severe defeat. Ships became trapped near shore while the Carthaginian fleet maneuvered more effectively. Another Roman convoy was destroyed by weather soon afterward. The Republic appeared exhausted. For several years, large fleet operations diminished. On land, Hamilcar Barca took command of Carthaginian forces in Sicily. He established positions around Mount Irkt and later Mount Eryx, using difficult ground, raids, and sudden attacks to keep Roman armies occupied. He could not expel them from the island. They could not force him into surrender. The war had begun over Messana. 2 decades later, young men were serving who had been children when the first troops crossed the strait. Commanders inherited camps built by predecessors. Taxpayers supported a conflict whose original dispute had become almost irrelevant. The long struggle around Lilybaeum revealed what a naval war required when no celebrated battle occurred. Roman camps needed grain carried across the strait, timber for repair, iron for tools, medical supplies, pack animals, and pay arriving through officials whose accounts had to survive political scrutiny. Carthaginian ships attempted to run the blockade with skilled pilots who knew reefs, winds, and narrow approaches. A successful voyage might bring soldiers and food into the city. A captured transport could deprive hundreds of men for weeks. The harbor became a place of repeated small risks. Lookouts studied sails. Rowers slept near benches because a signal could come at any hour. Divers, fishermen, deserters, and local guides carried information. Storms that looked manageable from shore could scatter ships before commanders completed formation. Siege labor changed the surrounding landscape. Trees were cut, soil moved, ditches dug, and stones quarried. Soldiers who imagined war as spear and shield spent days carrying baskets or repairing a wall raised only to be broken at night. Carthaginian defenders dug counterworks and launched sudden attacks against Roman machines. Fire consumed weeks of construction in minutes. Lilybaeum's endurance mattered politically. Carthage could tell its citizens that Sicily had not been lost while the great western base held. Roman magistrates could not claim completion while a Carthaginian flag remained over the harbor. The city therefore absorbed resources disproportionate to the ground it occupied. Prisoners and deserters moved between the two systems. A captured sailor possessed knowledge of routes and signals. A local community could trade with one army and provide information to the other. Loyalty in Sicily was not always a permanent identity. It could be a decision renewed whenever troops appeared at the gate. The war also tested the relationship between commanders and governments. Carthaginian generals faced investigation when defeat suggested incompetence or betrayal. Roman consuls held office for 1 year and sought enough success to justify triumph before a successor arrived. Strategic continuity had to survive personal ambition. Hamilcar's later operations from mountain bases exploited this impatience. He could raid the Italian coast, threaten Roman positions, and withdraw before a large army forced battle. Roman commanders controlled more territory but could not turn control into surrender. The conflict became an argument over which republic would admit exhaustion first. The human geography of the war stretched beyond the named battlefields. In Italian port towns, shipbuilding transformed employment and demand for timber. In North Africa, landowners and communities supplied grain and taxes. In Sicily, farmers harvested under the shadow of armies that might consume the crop before it reached market. Families of rowers waited for ships whose loss might never be reported with individual names. Naval casualty lists were especially impersonal. A legion carried standards and an identity through time. A fleet lost in storm could disappear as hulls and totals. Men trapped below deck did not leave heroic last stands. Their bodies washed ashore or remained beneath water. This invisibility helps explain why ancient narratives can make the First Punic War feel like a sequence of machines and numbers. For those who lived through it, it was a generation of absence. Rome's later victory rested upon households repeatedly surrendering men to a form of service many had not expected when the conflict began. Rome finally made one more effort at sea. The public treasury was strained, so wealthy citizens financed ships individually or in groups, with an understanding that repayment would follow victory. The new fleet was built for speed and trained carefully under the consul Gaius Lutatius Catullus. Carthage prepared relief vessels carrying supplies and troops towards Sicily. In March 241 BCE, near the Aegates Islands, the Roman fleet intercepted them. Weather again mattered, but this time Roman commanders used it well. Their ships had been stripped for battle and their crews trained. Many Carthaginian vessels were burdened with cargo and inadequately prepared for combat. The Roman victory cut the remaining Carthaginian army in Sicily from reliable support. Hamilcar had not been defeated in his mountain positions. Carthage could no longer sustain him there. Negotiations ended the First Punic War. Carthage withdrew from Sicily, released prisoners, and agreed to pay a large indemnity. Rome gained its first overseas province and a new understanding of itself. It had begun as an Italian land power and finished as a state capable of replacing fleets until the Western Mediterranean's greatest naval republic accepted defeat. The price was almost beyond calculation. Ships, citizens, allies, rowers, soldiers, and treasure had vanished into water and battle. Carthage also emerged wounded but alive. Its city remained wealthy. Its African territory remained. Its political institutions remained. Hamilcar's army remained under arms. Peace had been signed. Neither side had learned how to trust it. The settlement created practical problems Rome had never faced on this scale. Sicily could not simply be treated like another Italian ally. Much of the island had fought under different laws, languages, and political traditions. Communities had to be classified, taxed, rewarded, or punished according to their conduct during the war. Syracuse remained under Hiero and continued as an allied kingdom. Other districts came under Roman magistrates. Grain became central. Sicily's harvest could supply armies in the city of Rome, but collection required records, contractors, transport, harbors, and judgments about what communities owed. The first province therefore began not as a polished administrative design, but as accumulated solutions. Roman officials held authority abroad for limited terms and returned to face political evaluation. Local elites learned how to petition, negotiate, and survive a distant Senate. Tax collectors and commercial contractors discovered opportunities unavailable within Italy. Conquest changed Roman expectations. Commands across the sea could bring wealth, honor, and extended influence. Citizens who had financed the final fleet expected repayment. Allies who had provided ships and crews expected recognition. Victory created obligations almost as quickly as war had done. Carthaginian families experienced the peace through absence. Sicily had contained settlements, sanctuaries, commercial partners, land, and graves connected to generations of Punic life. Withdrawal was not only movement of soldiers. It ended political relationships that had shaped the western part of the island for centuries. The treaty settled ownership of Sicily. It did not settle what either republic believed the war had proved. Rome believed persistence could overcome a more experienced enemy. Carthage believed Rome would use victory as the beginning of further demand. The Carthaginian soldiers returning from Sicily expected pay. For years they had fought far from home under commanders who relied upon their endurance. Now the state treasury was burdened by indemnity, and the government tried to negotiate reduced payment. Units were gathered in North Africa while officials delayed, calculated, and hoped that men from different regions would bargain separately. Instead, grievance united them. Libyans who had served Carthage stood beside foreign mercenaries. Their communities had also endured heavy taxation during the war. Officers named Spendius and Mathos became leaders of a revolt that spread beyond a dispute over wages. Cities joined. Carthaginian territory contracted around the capital and a few loyal positions. Polybius called the conflict the Truceless War because the restraints expected even in ancient warfare seemed to disappear. Prisoners were mutilated, tortured, and killed. Retaliation answered retaliation. Men who might once have surrendered no longer trusted promises. Carthage found itself threatened by the same military diversity that had sustained it in Sicily. Hamilcar Barca became the central Carthaginian commander. He used maneuver, negotiation, alliances with Numidian leaders, and ruthless punishment to divide opponents. At one point, a rebel force was trapped in a place remembered as the Saw, where hunger became so severe that men consumed prisoners and then one another. The rebellion ended after years of horror, with Mathos captured and the surviving resistance destroyed. Carthage had survived a war closer and in some ways more dangerous than the one against Rome. Its reward was another humiliation. During the revolt, Carthaginian mercenaries on Sardinia also rebelled. Rome initially rejected their appeal. Later, when Carthage prepared to recover the island, Rome declared the action a threat and demanded withdrawal. Too exhausted to fight, Carthage surrendered Sardinia and paid an additional indemnity. No treaty language could disguise the nature of the act. Rome used Carthage's weakness to seize territory not granted by the peace of 241 BC. Romans could defend the decision through security and opportunity. Carthaginians remembered theft. The revolt also changed the relationship between Carthage and its African subjects. During the First Punic War, Libyan communities had carried heavy fiscal burdens. Some paid a large share of crops and income to support fleets and armies. When unpaid soldiers rebelled, local anger found an organized military center. The war therefore became more than an argument between foreign professionals and their employer. It exposed resentment produced by Carthaginian rule itself. Carthage initially misjudged the danger because officials believed accounts could be settled through bargaining. Thousands of armed men gathered at Sicca and later near Tunis. Different languages and origins made communication difficult, allowing leaders to spread rumor that the government intended betrayal. Negotiation collapsed when soldiers seized representatives and expanded demands. Mathos, a Libyan, understood the risk facing African participants. Foreign mercenaries might eventually leave after payment. Local rebels could not easily escape Carthaginian punishment if the movement failed. Their survival therefore required complete victory or continued war. Spendius had reportedly escaped enslavement and feared return to a Roman owner if captured. His personal future was also tied to resistance. Leaders who could not safely surrender made compromise harder for everyone beneath them. The rebels seized or threatened important towns and cut Carthage from inland support. Utica and Hippo Acra eventually joined them, killing Carthaginian garrisons according to ancient accounts. Carthage, the city that had financed overseas armies, struggled to move safely through its own territory. Hanno, another Carthaginian commander, achieved limited success but failed to end the revolt. Political rivalry complicated coordination with Hamilcar. The government had to manage commanders whose families and supporters judged one another while the state approached destruction. Hamilcar used the Bagradas River and local knowledge to maneuver against forces expecting him to remain blocked. He won over the Numidian leader Neravas, whose cavalry shifted the balance. Marriage or promised family alliance reinforced the new partnership. At first, Hamilcar released captured rebels, hoping mercy would encourage desertion. The strategy ended after rebels tortured Carthaginian prisoners, including the commander Gesco, mutilating them before death. Retaliation became systematic. Captives were trampled by elephants or executed. Each side used atrocity to prevent followers from believing surrender remained possible. The war reached Carthage's walls. Food and access narrowed. Then rebel alliances fractured, supplies failed, and Hamilcar trapped a large force in mountain terrain. Hunger completed encirclement. The final defeat of Mathos restored the city's authority, but not confidence. Carthage emerged from the truceless war with a lesson opposite to Rome's later lesson after Cannae. Rome would discover that its Italian alliance could survive invasion. Carthage had discovered how quickly burdens imposed upon subjects and soldiers could return as siege. The seizure of Sardinia by Rome therefore cut deeper than the loss of another island. Carthage had suppressed rebellion and expected to recover territory held by mutineers. Rome threatened war while the city was still exhausted. The additional indemnity made peace appear not as a stable agreement, but as a condition Rome could rewrite whenever power allowed. For Romans, the acquisition improved control of sea routes and removed a potential base of hostility. For Carthaginians, it proved that weakness invited demands beyond any signed settlement. Hamilcar's Iberian project grew from this world. It was recovery family ambition, state policy, and preparation against future coercion at once. The silver of Spain would pay Rome's indemnity, while financing armies Rome would later face. The peace of 241 BCE had ended the First War on Parchment. The Mercenary War in Sardinia ensured that its emotional settlement never occurred. Hamilcar carried that bitterness into the next stage of his life. In 237 BCE, he crossed to Iberia with an army. The peninsula offered silver mines, agricultural wealth, ports, recruits, and communities divided among local rivalries. Carthaginian influence had existed there before, but the Barcid family now built something more ambitious. Ancient tradition says Hamilcar brought his young son Hannibal to an altar before departure and required him to swear never to be a friend of Rome. The account may have been shaped after Hannibal became famous. It expressed what later generations believed the family represented, a private inheritance of war. The expansion in Iberia served several purposes at once. Carthage needed revenue to pay Rome. Command offered Hamilcar prestige and independence from political enemies at home. Soldiers received plunder and land. Silver financed further recruitment. Local alliances supplied infantry and cavalry. Marriage connected the Barcids to Iberian elites. Hamilcar died during fighting in 229 BCE. His son-in-law Hasdrubal succeeded him and favored diplomacy, urban development, and negotiated authority. He founded or enlarged Carthage, New Carthage, on a protected harbor in southeastern Iberia. The city became arsenal, treasury, administrative center, and linked to North Africa. Rome watched, but did not immediately intervene with force. It had wars and fears elsewhere, especially Celtic pressure in northern Italy. Diplomacy produced an agreement usually associated with the Ebro River, beyond which Carthaginian forces were not to expand. The exact wording and geography remained debated, but both states were now marking limits in a region neither had previously treated as the center of their relationship. South of the agreed boundary stood Saguntum, a coastal city with connections to Rome. Its precise treaty status became one of the arguments through which each side later assigned blame. Saguntum lay within the sphere Rome had apparently allowed Carthage, yet Rome regarded it as a friend whose destruction could not be ignored. Hasdrubal was assassinated in 221 BCE. The army chose Hannibal, now in his mid-20s, as commander. Carthage confirmed the appointment. Hannibal had grown within camps and campaigns. He spoke to soldiers from several peoples, understood Iberian warfare, and belonged to a family whose power rested upon success abroad. He spent his first years consolidating territory. Then conflict at Saguntum sharpened. Local disputes and rival factions gave Hannibal a reason to intervene. He besieged the city in 219 BCE. The defense lasted around 8 months. Roman envoys protested but did not send an army. Saguntum eventually fell and was plundered. Rome sent an embassy to Carthage demanding Hannibal's surrender. The Carthaginian council refused. Debate turned upon treaties, boundaries, and whether Saguntum had placed itself under Roman protection lawfully. One Roman envoy gathered the fold of his toga and declared that he carried peace and war. The Carthaginians told him to give whichever he wished. He released war. The memory of the First War also shaped ordinary expectations before the Second. Roman veterans knew Carthage could be forced to yield if the Republic endured long enough. Carthaginian officers knew Rome could replace losses that would end another state. Neither lesson guaranteed wisdom. Each encouraged leaders to believe that another conflict could be survived because the previous one had been. Young men inherited confidence without inheriting the exhaustion that had created it. Hannibal's generation had not commanded at Mylae or waited outside Lilybaeum, yet the peace they received was defined by those defeats. Roman commanders entering the Second War also knew the final result more clearly than the years of uncertainty that preceded it. Memory simplified the past into a promise. Persistence had worked before. That promise would keep both sides fighting after the new war exceeded every expectation. The Second Punic War did not begin because one man hated Rome. It began because the settlement after the First War had left grievances, rival zones of expansion, uncertain obligations, and leaders who believed delay favored the other side. Hannibal chose to attack Saguntum knowing Rome might respond. Rome chose to make the city's fall a test of credibility. Carthage chose not to sacrifice its most successful commander. Each decision narrowed the path away from war. Roman planners expected the conflict to unfold in familiar directions. One consular army would move toward Iberia. Another would prepare to invade Africa from Sicily. Rome possessed naval superiority and the resources of Italy. Carthage would be forced to defend distant territories. Hannibal refused the map Rome had prepared. In 218 BCE, he led an army north from New Carthage, crossed the Ebro, fought through the Pyrenees, and approached the Rhone. He left garrisons, dismissed men he did not trust for the long campaign, and arranged the movement of infantry, cavalry, baggage, and elephants across rivers and hostile territory. A Roman army under Publius Cornelius Scipio reached the mouth of the Rhone expecting to block him. Hannibal had already crossed upstream. Rather than turn back toward Iberia, he continued toward the Alps. The crossing became legend because it looked impossible. Ancient sources disagreed about the exact route even within generations. Mountain communities attacked strung-out columns. Snow, cold, falling rock, narrow paths, hunger, and frightened animals reduced the army. Men slipped from heights. Pack animals died with supplies still attached. Elephants had to be guided along ground never meant for them. Hannibal reached Italy with a force smaller than the one that had left Iberia, but carrying something more dangerous than numbers: surprise. Rome's strategy had assumed the Alps were a barrier. Hannibal turned them into an entrance. The peoples of northern Italy included Gauls recently defeated or threatened by Roman expansion. Some joined him. Food, guides, and recruits began replacing what the mountains had taken. At the Ticinus River, Hannibal's cavalry defeated Roman mounted forces. The consul Publius Scipio was wounded and, according to tradition, saved by his young son, the future Scipio Africanus. The engagement was limited, but it revealed Carthaginian superiority in cavalry and encouraged Gallic support. At the Trebia late in 218 BCE, Hannibal used weather, hunger, provocation, and ambush. Roman troops crossed a freezing river before eating. Hannibal's men had prepared, warmed themselves, and taken food. A hidden force under his brother Mago waited in cover. The Romans fought hard and part of the infantry broke through, but the army was devastated. Rome raised new forces. The following year, Hannibal crossed the Apennines and moved through marshland where men and animals suffered terribly. He reportedly lost sight in one eye during the ordeal. Then he watched the consul Gaius Flaminius pursue him near Lake Trasimene. Fog and hills concealed Carthaginian positions along the narrow path between slope and water. When the Roman column entered, Hannibal's forces descended from several directions. The battle became an ambush on the scale of an army. Men were killed before units could form. Some fled into the lake and drowned beneath armor. Flaminius died. News reached Rome that a consul and another army had been lost. Fear entered the city, but the political response followed constitutional memory. In emergency, Romans appointed a dictator with temporary authority. Quintus Fabius Maximus received command. Fabius recognized that courage was not the scarce resource. Timeless, Hannibal wanted allied communities to conclude that Rome could no longer protect them. Every destroyed army strengthened his argument. Fabius therefore refused the kind of battle in which Hannibal's cavalry, intelligence, and control of terrain had proved decisive. Roman forces followed at distance, occupied high ground, guarded routes, attacked foragers, and prevented easy movement without risking everything in one afternoon. The strategy preserved armies and frustrated Hannibal. It also offended Roman expectations. Consuls were elected to act. Aristocrats won honor through visible aggression. Farmers watched enemy troops burn fields while the dictator appeared to avoid them. Soldiers saw smoke and wanted battle. Fabius became the cunctator, the delayer, a title first spoken with criticism and later with respect. His subordinate Marcus Minucius gained a limited success and was granted equal command. Hannibal then lured Minucius into danger and nearly destroyed his force before Fabius intervened. According to tradition, Minucius acknowledged the older man as father and restored unity. The lesson did not permanently change Roman political culture. When the dictatorship ended, the Republic again sought a decisive victory. Hannibal's movement after Trasimene was also political theater directed at the Italian allies. He released many non-Roman prisoners while keeping Roman citizens, announcing that he had come to free Italy from Rome rather than conquer every community. The distinction aimed directly at the alliance system. If Italians believed his war was against Roman domination, they might supply ports, grain, recruits, and legitimacy. Rome answered not only with armies, but with control of information and relationships. Colonies were reinforced. Envoys moved between councils. Hostages and family ties mattered. Allied elites who had gained citizenship, marriage connections, or economic advantage through Rome had something to lose if the system vanished. Hannibal's tactical victories could not automatically overcome this web. A battlefield displayed Roman weakness for one day. A community deciding whether to defect had to imagine the next 10 years. The countryside carried the argument. Hannibal sometimes spared lands associated with Fabius, whether by deliberate attempt to create suspicion or through circumstances later interpreted that way. Roman opponents accused the dictator of private understanding. Fabius had to defend not only his strategy, but his loyalty. This was one of Hannibal's greatest skills. Use movement and selective destruction to make Roman politics work against Roman survival. He understood the pride of consuls, the impatience of citizens, and the grievances of allies. Cannae was possible because Roman leaders believed another season of delay carried political danger. The army gathered there represented the Republic's answer in physical form. Each legion and allied unit had been levied through communities across Italy. Officers carried family reputations. Consuls shared command according to a constitutional system designed to prevent permanent personal control. Hannibal turned those strengths into vulnerabilities by offering the decisive encounter political culture wanted. After the battle, his officers reportedly debated whether to march immediately upon Rome. The cavalry commander Hannibal later received the famous line that Hannibal knew how to win victory but not use it. The exchange may be a literary judgment created after the outcome. A direct march faced real obstacles: exhausted troops, casualties, lack of heavy siege equipment, fortified walls, uncertain supplies, and a city still capable of raising defense. Hannibal's strategy did not require reckless assault upon Rome. He needed the defeated Republic to negotiate and its allies to leave. Judged from the morning after Cannae, that expectation was reasonable. What he could not know was how far Roman leaders would go to deny the ordinary meaning of defeat. For 216 BCE, Rome assembled an army larger than any it had yet sent against Hannibal. 8 legions and allied contingents gathered under the consuls Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro. Ancient numbers vary, but the force may have approached 80,000 infantry with additional cavalry. The intention was understandable. Hannibal occupied hostile territory and depended upon movement. Rome possessed greater manpower. A massive infantry army could crush him if battle occurred before more allies defected. Near Cannae in Apulia, Hannibal waited on open ground. He arranged his army so that the center projected forward, composed largely of Iberian and Gallic infantry. Experienced African infantry stood farther back on the sides. Cavalry occupied both wings, with heavier horsemen under Hasdrubal on one side and Numidians on the other. The Roman formation placed extraordinary depth in the center. The plan was to drive through Hannibal's line by mass. At first, it appeared to work. Roman infantry pressed the curved Carthaginian center backward. Men advanced into the space, crowded by comrades behind and enemies before. The center did not break. It bent. Meanwhile, Carthaginian cavalry defeated Roman horsemen. Hasdrubal's cavalry rode behind the Roman army and helped drive off the allied cavalry on the other wing. The African infantry, which had waited on the sides, turned inward against the Roman flanks. The Roman mass found itself surrounded. There was no room to use numbers. Men could not lift shields properly or reach an enemy. Units dissolved into compression. The outer ranks were killed while those inside waited, hearing the battle approach. Dust, heat, blood, and the weight of bodies transformed formation into enclosure. The killing lasted for hours. Paulus died. Former consuls died. Quaestors, tribunes, senators, and tens of thousands of citizens and allies died. Varro escaped with a remnant. Ancient casualty numbers differ, but Cannae was among the greatest single disasters in Roman history. Hannibal had produced the battle he wanted and won it with a double encirclement studied ever since. The military question seemed answered. The political question had only begun. After Cannae, no Roman citizen could pretend the Republic had merely suffered another defeat. The road to the city appeared open. Survivors carried stories faster than official messengers. Families waited in the forum for names. Houses lost fathers, sons, brothers, patrons, debtors, and heirs in one day. So many senators had fallen that the political class itself seemed physically reduced. Rome did not collapse into uncontrolled mourning. The Senate limited public displays of grief so that despair would not paralyze the city. Guards watched the walls. Religious rites sought explanations and favor. Extraordinary measures recruited men below the usual age. Thousands of enslaved men were purchased by the state, promised freedom, armed, and organized into units. Criminals and debtors were used in emergency levies according to later accounts. Gold and weapons were gathered. The surviving consul Varro returned. Crowds met him. The Senate thanked him for not despairing of the Republic. The gesture was not sentimental kindness. A defeated commander could have been prosecuted or disgraced. Publicly honoring his decision to return told every other commander that survival after failure was still service. Rome needed men willing to lead the next army without believing one lost battle would end their careers and lives. Hannibal sent representatives to discuss ransom for prisoners. Carthaginian strategy had reached its political goal. Rome had lost several armies and should now recognize that continued war was irrational. The Senate refused public payment for the captives. Accounts differ over private arrangements, but the official message was unmistakable. Soldiers who surrendered could not expect the state to finance their return when others had fought through or died. More importantly, the Senate refused to negotiate peace. Hannibal had not crossed the Alps because he expected to storm Rome's walls and administer Italy directly from Carthage. He expected military defeat to break Rome's network of alliances. If enough Italian communities abandoned the Republic, Rome would lose manpower, revenue, roads, and strategic depth. Peace could then restore Carthaginian influence and reduce Rome to a smaller power. Cannae made that strategy plausible. Capua, one of the richest cities in Italy, defected. Much of southern Italy became unstable. Samnite, Lacanian, Bruttian, and Apulian communities made different calculations. Syracuse eventually shifted away from alliance with Rome. Philip V of Macedon opened relations with Hannibal, creating the danger of pressure from across the Adriatic. But Italy did not move as one body. The Latin colonies largely remained loyal. Many Central Italian allies did not defect. Communities remembered Roman power, feared punishment, depended upon neighboring allies, or judged that Hannibal could win battles without remaining everywhere. Some also possessed political and social ties to Rome built across generations. The alliance system bent without breaking. That was the first answer to Cannae. The second was strategic change. Rome no longer concentrated everything in one army, seeking the battle Hannibal offered. Multiple forces defended regions, watched allied cities, cut detachments, and fought elsewhere. Fabius's caution became more acceptable, though Roman commanders still sought opportunities for aggression. Hannibal moved through Italy as the greatest battlefield commander of his age, but every movement created a logistical problem. His army had to eat. Horses required fodder. Defecting cities expected protection. Garrisons left in one region weakened the force available in another. A victorious foreign army could inspire alliance, but it could not be present beside every wavering wall. Carthaginian support arrived, but not in the scale that later critics imagined would automatically have ended the war. Carthage fought simultaneously in Iberia, Sicily, and at sea. Political leaders had to decide where ships, money, troops, and commanders should go. Hannibal's army was not a detached private adventure, yet the city never concentrated all remaining resources upon Italy after Cannae. The reasons were structural as much as personal. A government responsible for several theaters could not see Italy only through Hannibal's opportunity. Iberia financed war and could not be abandoned. Africa had to be protected. Naval routes were contested. Political rivals may have distrusted Barcid power. Reinforcement also required ships, secure ports, and cooperation from communities along the route. Hannibal gained allies, but not the immediate dissolution of Roman Italy. Rome used time. Capua became the clearest test. The city had welcomed Hannibal after Cannae and offered quarters to his army. Later Roman moral tradition claimed luxury there softened Carthaginian soldiers, as if baths and comfortable houses achieved what legions could not. The explanation is unlikely. Hannibal's army remained dangerous. Capua mattered because its defection threatened Rome's claim that loyalty would be rewarded and rebellion punished. Roman armies gradually tightened pressure. Hannibal tried to divert them by marching toward Rome itself in 211 BCE. Panic spread as his camp appeared near the city, but the siege of Capua continued. Rome trusted its defenses and refused to exchange one strategic objective for another display of threat. Capua surrendered. Its leading rebels were executed. Territory and political rights were taken. Many inhabitants lost status and property. The punishment was deliberate communication. Other Italian communities were shown that Hannibal could win on open ground, but might not protect them years later. The city's religious response to Cannae showed how Romans understood catastrophe when military explanations seemed insufficient. Priests examined omens and ritual failures. Foreign rites entered public action. 2 Gauls and 2 Greeks, 1 man and 1 woman from each people, were buried alive in an underground chamber in the Forum Boarium, an exceptional and disturbing sacrifice Romans themselves regarded as outside ordinary custom. The act suggests a society searching for control through every inherited or imported means. Women gathered in grief while officials limited mourning. Widows faced uncertain property, children, debts, and family alliances. The death of so many elite men opened political vacancies while also removing experienced leaders. New senators had to be selected. Young men assumed responsibilities earlier than expected. Military recovery reached into social boundaries. The units formed from enslaved volunteers, later known in tradition as the Vol ones, fought for promised freedom. Men normally excluded from Roman citizenship were armed because the citizen body had been cut apart. Their service exposed the flexibility hidden beneath Republican hierarchy. When survival required it, status could be renegotiated. The survivors of Cannae carried stigma. Some were sent to Sicily and denied normal discharge until the war ended. Their continued service turned shame into a reserve Rome could use years later. Scipio would find volunteers among them for the invasion of Africa, offering the possibility that the story of defeat might end elsewhere. Hannibal's own coalition also required constant political work. He addressed troops through interpreters and commanders, distributed plunder, honored different fighting traditions, and maintained trust across years without regular reinforcement on the scale he desired. Gallic warriors, Iberian veterans, Libyan infantry, Numidian cavalry, Italians, and others did not become one people. They became one army through repeated victory and confidence in the man leading them. Winter quarters, marriages, captured property, and relationships with allied communities tied parts of the army to Italy. Camp was not an empty field containing only soldiers. It included servants, traders, craftsmen, healers, animals, captives, and families. Decisions about movement affected thousands who never appeared in battle formations. Defecting cities had their own expectations. Capua wanted autonomy and rank, not replacement of Roman authority by permanent Carthaginian occupation. Tarentum's internal factions opened most of the city to Hannibal in 212 BCE, but the Roman garrison retained the citadel and access to the harbor. For years, the city remained divided between occupier, ally, and besieged fortress. When Rome retook Tarentum in 209 BCE, killing and enslavement followed. Fabius, associated with caution, could be ruthless when opportunity came. Roman strategy was not passive waiting. It combined refusal of Hannibal's chosen battles with relentless recovery of places supporting him. Nola resisted repeated attempts to draw it away from Rome. Other communities negotiated secretly with both sides. Local elites had to estimate whether Roman punishment in 5 years was more dangerous than Hannibal's anger tomorrow. Common inhabitants lived beneath decisions made by councils and factions, then paid when the chosen alliance failed. The Roman refusal to negotiate did not mean universal confidence. Citizens feared, complained, evaded service, and argued. Consuls still competed. Armies still suffered smaller defeats. What held was a political decision made repeatedly. No recognized Roman authority would treat Hannibal's presence as a permanent settlement. This gave time a direction. Every year Hannibal remained without dissolving the alliance system made his earlier victories less decisive. Every recovered city reduced the number of secure bases. Every Roman success in Spain or Sicily narrowed the resources available to Carthage. Hannibal could march near Rome and frighten its population. He could not compel the Senate to speak the word peace. The war spread far beyond Italy. In Sicily, the death of the long-serving King Hiero removed Rome's most dependable ally on the island. Political turmoil at Syracuse produced alignment with Carthage. Rome sent Marcus Claudius Marcellus to recover the city. Syracuse possessed formidable walls, a strong harbor, and the mathematician Archimedes, whose mechanical devices became legendary. Ancient accounts described cranes lifting ships, stones thrown from carefully designed machines, and weapons adjusted for different ranges. Some later stories exaggerated, but Roman attackers genuinely faced sophisticated defenses. The siege continued until Roman soldiers entered during a festival when vigilance had weakened. The city was taken in 212 BCE. Archimedes was killed despite orders, according to tradition, that he be spared. Stories place him over a diagram. asking a soldier not to disturb his circles. The image joined brilliance and conquest in one small room. Syracuse was plundered. Greek art and wealth moved toward Rome. The recovery of Sicily strengthened grain supply and naval position, while exposing Romans to cultural treasures they admired and feared as luxuries. Across the Adriatic, Rome avoided allowing Philip V of Macedon to bring major force into Italy. Alliances with Greek states and limited operations tied him down. The First Macedonian War did not become a second invasion of the peninsula. Rome was learning to separate threats from joining. Iberia was even more important. Publius and Gnaeus Scipio had campaigned there from the beginning of the war, preventing Carthaginian armies from freely reinforcing Hannibal. They won allies, fought along rivers and cities, and operated far from Rome with difficult supply. In 211 BCE, both brothers were killed in separate defeats after allied contingents deserted. The loss threatened the entire Roman position south of the Ebro. A young man volunteered for command. Publius Cornelius Scipio, son of the consul wounded at Ticinus, was about 24. He had survived Cannae, served in crisis, and belonged to a distinguished family, but his age and rank made the appointment extraordinary. He arrived in Iberia and chose not to begin with the scattered Carthaginian armies. He struck at their center. New Carthage stood on a peninsula protected by water, walls, and a lagoon. It contained silver, weapons, hostages from Iberian communities, supplies, and a harbor connecting Spain to Africa. Carthaginian commanders believed distance and geography made a sudden Roman assault unlikely. Scipio moved quickly in 209 BCE. A local fisherman or intelligence network revealed that part of the lagoon became shallow under particular conditions. While Roman forces attacked walls and harbor, selected men crossed through water believed impassable and reached a vulnerable side. The city fell. Scipio captured treasure without allowing uncontrolled destruction to consume its political value. Iberian hostages were treated respectfully and returned to families, turning Carthaginian instruments of control into Roman diplomacy. Craftsmen were put to work. Ships and stores changed hands. One operation altered the balance of an entire theater. The young Roman was developing a style different from Fabius and different from Hannibal, though influenced by both. Bold movement prepared by information, combined with political treatment designed to make victory reproduce itself. He defeated Carthaginian forces at Becula, but could not prevent Hasdrubal Barca, Hannibal's brother, from moving north toward Italy. Hasdrubal crossed the Alps in 207 BCE with less difficulty than Hannibal had faced, partly because routes and relationships were now better known. He entered northern Italy and sought to unite with his brother. If the two armies joined, Rome might again face concentrated danger. Messages carried the plan south. Roman forces intercepted them. The consul Gaius Claudius Nero was watching Hannibal in southern Italy. He selected troops, left enough men to conceal his departure, and marched rapidly north to join the other consul, Marcus Livius Salinator, near the Metaurus River. The movement risked everything. If Hannibal discovered the reduced force, he could attack. If Nero arrived too late, Hasdrubal might escape. If the consuls quarreled, opportunity would vanish. Nero entered the Roman camp quietly, but Hasdrubal noticed signs of reinforcement. Shields more numerous, horses in worse condition, a trumpet call repeated. He attempted to withdraw under cover of darkness. Guides failed. The army lost the route and was forced into battle. At the Metaurus, Roman pressure broke the Carthaginian force. Hasdrubal fought until he was killed. Nero marched south as quickly as he had come. The first certain news Hannibal received was his brother's severed head thrown before the Carthaginian positions. Ancient writers imagined his recognition that he now saw the fate of Carthage. The grief cannot be measured, but the strategic meaning was clear. The reinforcement army was gone. Hannibal remained undefeated in major battle on Italian soil and increasingly unable to change the war. Rome's recovery did not come from one hidden reserve untouched by suffering. The Republic strained its society year after year. Taxes and levies continued. Wealthy citizens provided loans. Women contributed jewelry during emergencies according to ancient accounts. Temples yielded treasure. Agricultural labor was disrupted by service, devastation, and displacement. Enslaved laborers and captives became more numerous. Allies supplied men in proportions that made victory as much Italian as Roman, though political credit flowed toward Rome. The census list shrank. Families carried absence for decades. A boy born when Hannibal crossed the Alps could reach military age before Hannibal left Italy. Carthaginian and allied communities suffered in parallel. Iberian towns changed sides and paid for it. North African farmers financed armies and endured requisition. Numidian rulers balanced alliance with Carthage against Roman opportunity. Soldiers from many peoples died in a conflict whose official causes lay in Saguntum and older treaties, but whose continuation had become a struggle for survival and rank. By 206 BCE, Scipio defeated the remaining major Carthaginian forces in Iberia at Ilipa. His deployment and battlefield adjustments deceived opponents about where his strongest infantry would stand. Carthaginian authority in the peninsula collapsed. Scipio returned to Rome seeking the consulship and permission to invade Africa. The proposal divided experienced leaders. Fabius feared that a young commander wanted glory through a dangerous expedition while Hannibal still occupied Italy. Better, he argued, to remove the enemy from the peninsula before risking an army across the sea. Scipio understood the opposite. Hannibal remained in Italy because Carthage itself was not threatened enough to recall him. An invasion of Africa would change the direction of necessity. The Senate did not grant every resource he wanted. He received Sicily and permission to cross if he judged it advantageous. Volunteers gathered, including survivors of Cannae who had served under the shadow of disgrace. Scipio trained them carefully. He also prepared diplomacy with Numidia. Numidian cavalry had been one of Carthage's greatest advantages. North African politics, however, were divided. Messana had fought for Carthage in Iberia. Rivalries and changing fortunes pushed him toward Rome. Syphax, another powerful Numidian king, moved toward Carthage and married Sophonisba, daughter of the Carthaginian Hasdrubal son of Gisco. The coming African campaign would not be Rome against a single united land. It would be fought through local dynasties, marriages, cavalry, and shifting allegiance. Scipio crossed in 204 BCE. Hannibal was still in Italy. For the first time since he had descended from the Alps, events elsewhere would decide where he had to go. Before the African expedition could sail, Scipio had to turn permission into an army. Sicily served as training ground and storehouse. Grain was gathered. Transport ships were prepared. Horses, siege equipment, tools, and medical materials had to cross safely. Scipio drilled units not only for battle, but for rapid changes in formation. Veterans who had survived earlier disasters trained beside volunteers seeking glory, pardon, or reward. His political enemies watched for failure. If he crossed without adequate authority and lost, they could describe the expedition as reckless personal ambition. If he delayed, they could claim the strategy had never been practical. Scipio therefore cultivated Italian communities willing to provide ships, weapons, and supplies, creating support outside the reluctant center of the Senate. The survivors assigned to Sicily after Cannae offered a particularly powerful resource. They had been punished for living through defeat and told they would not return until the enemy left Italy. Scipio treated them as men capable of recovering honor rather than as permanent symbols of shame. Their experience gave the invasion army a memory of what Hannibal could do and a reason to finish the war. Intelligence about Africa mattered as much as courage. Scipio had previously met or communicated with Numidian leaders while campaigning in Iberia. He understood that Carthage's cavalry advantage rested upon alliances that could be reversed. Massiniss's fortunes changed violently. At times he was driven from his kingdom and survived with a small following. His commitment to Rome was also a struggle to recover personal power. The alliance promised mutual benefit. Scipio would gain cavalry able to match or exceed Carthaginian and Numidian opponents. Massinissa would gain Roman support against Syphax and rivals. Neither arrangement was sentimental. Each man required the other's victory. The landing itself carried echoes of Regulus's failed invasion half a century earlier. Roman memory contained the warning. Initial success in Africa could end with elephants and cavalry destroying an isolated army. Scipio had to secure supply, maintain ships, protect camps, and avoid allowing Carthage to choose open ground under favorable conditions. He established a defensible position and used raids to gather resources while seeking Utica. The city did not fall quickly. Winter approached. Carthaginian and Numidian forces increased. A less patient commander might have offered battle to justify the expedition. Scipio used apparent negotiation to learn the camps and waited for the night when fire could do what direct assault might not. His greatness was not imitation of Hannibal's maneuvers alone. It was the ability to recognize that the war could be won through a sequence of political and military reversals. Hostages released in Spain, Numidian alliance in Africa, camps destroyed through deception, and Carthage forced to recall the commander Rome had failed to remove from Italy. Scipio landed near Utica and began by doing what Roman commanders had repeatedly failed to do against Hannibal. He refused to let the enemy define the kind of battle he must fight. Carthaginian and Numidian forces gathered under Hasdrubal, son of Gisco and Syphax. Their camps stood near one another outside the city. Negotiations continued while both sides prepared. Scipio appeared willing to discuss terms and used envoys to study entrances, materials, distances, and routines. The camps contained large areas of reed, timber, cloth, and other combustible construction. On a chosen night, Roman forces and Massinissa's Numidians attacked with fire. Flames spread through sleeping quarters and confused men who believed disaster accidental until weapons met them outside. Thousands died or fled. Ancient warfare often celebrated the open contest of disciplined lines. Scipio had no intention of offering fairness to an enemy whose destruction could be achieved through preparation. The surviving Carthaginian and Numidian armies regrouped. At the Great Plains, Scipio defeated them again. Syphax was pursued, captured, and displayed. Massinissa entered Cirta and recovered his kingdom. There he encountered Sophonisba. She had been connected earlier to Massinissa and then married to Syphax as Carthaginian diplomacy shifted. Ancient narratives made her beauty and influence central to the story. Massinissa married her quickly, perhaps from affection, political calculation, or both. Scipio feared that a woman associated with Carthage and Syphax might pull his ally away from Rome. He insisted that she appear in the Roman triumph as a captive. Massinissa sent poison. Sophonisba drank and died. The moment reveals how the great strategies of the Punic Wars entered private bodies. A royal marriage could secure cavalry. A woman's survival could be interpreted as political danger. Rome's alliance with Massinissa strengthened, and Carthage lost another path toward Numidian support. With Roman forces operating near the city and its field armies defeated, Carthage recalled Hannibal from Italy. He had remained there for roughly 15 years. The army he led home was not the same force that had crossed the Alps. Many original soldiers were dead. Others had joined during the Italian campaigns. Men had married, formed households, or spent most of adult life away from Africa. Retreat meant abandoning allies who had trusted him and leaving behind graves spread across the peninsula. Ancient accounts say he wept or raged at the order. He obeyed. Hannibal sailed from Croton and landed in Africa. The war that began with his march toward Italy would end within sight of Carthage's own world. Before battle, Hannibal and Scipio met. Later historians shaped their conversation into an encounter between greatness and consequence. Hannibal supposedly spoke of fortune, warned that victory could reverse, and offered terms. Scipio answered that Rome's earlier moderation had been rejected and that Carthage must now accept stronger conditions. Whether the speeches are exact, both commanders understood the stakes. Hannibal had to recover a strategic position already damaged by defeats and Numidian defection. Scipio had to face the one man whose name had terrified Rome for years. If he lost, the African invasion could collapse and Hannibal's authority revive. The armies met near Zama in 202 BCE. Hannibal placed elephants at the front, mixed infantry lines behind them, and cavalry on the wings. His forces included veterans from Italy and other troops of varying experience. Scipio arranged maniples with lanes through the formation rather than the usual staggered pattern, allowing elephants to be guided between units. Skirmishers prepared to use noise and missiles. When the elephants advanced, trumpets and shouting frightened some animals. Others moved into lanes where Roman troops attacked from the sides. Some turned against Carthaginian cavalry. The first danger was reduced rather than allowed to break formation. Messanas's Numidians and Roman cavalry drove enemy horsemen from the field. Infantry battle continued. Hannibal's veteran line remained formidable. Men from earlier lines, pushed backward, created confusion because the veterans were reluctant to admit them into formation. Scipio reorganized under pressure, extending his line for the final contest. Roman and Carthaginian infantry fought at close quarters until returning cavalry struck Hannibal's rear. The pattern recalled Cannae, but the direction had reversed. Hannibal escaped. His army did not. Carthage asked for peace. The terms ended its ability to act as a great military power. It surrendered warships except for a small number, elephants, and overseas possessions. It agreed to a heavy indemnity paid across decades and accepted limits on making war without Roman permission. Messanas's expanded Numidian kingdom became a permanent source of pressure on the Carthaginian frontier. Rome did not destroy the city. Scipio received the name Africanus and returned in triumph. Hannibal also returned to political life. The two commanders survived the battle that later memory treated as the inevitable meeting of rivals. Carthage faced debt, damaged territory, and restricted sovereignty. Yet its harbors still functioned. Its farmers still worked some of the most productive land in the Western Mediterranean. Merchants still understood routes, prices, and credit. The city could recover economically even when forbidden to recover militarily. Hannibal became a Safid and attempted financial and political reform. He challenged corruption, reorganized revenue, and accelerated indemnity payments. Success alarmed enemies inside Carthage and suspicious Romans outside it. Accusations claimed he was communicating with Antiochus III, ruler of the Seleucid Empire, and encouraging another war. Roman envoys arrived. Hannibal fled. His exile carried him through eastern courts. He advised Antiochus, though the king did not adopt every strategy. After Roman victory over the Seleucids, Hannibal moved again. Rome's reach followed. In Bithynia, with surrender approaching, he took poison. Ancient tradition placed bitter words on his lips about freeing Romans from their long anxiety. The exact phrasing may be literary. The meaning suited a man who preferred death to becoming the prize of the enemy he had nearly broken. Scipio Africanus experienced a different decline. Political rivals investigated his command and finances. Roman aristocratic competition did not stop because one man had saved the Republic. He withdrew from public life and died away from Rome, reportedly asking that an ungrateful country not possess his bones. The two greatest commanders of the Second Punic War did not end as rulers of the states they had defended. Rome moved outward. During the years Hannibal had spent in Italy, the Republic learned to fight simultaneously in Sicily, Iberia, Greece, and Africa. After victory, that capacity did not disappear. Roman armies entered wars against Macedon and the Seleucid kingdom. Greek states that invited Roman protection discovered that protection changed the balance from which it came. Victories carried treasure, captives, art, and new obligations into Italy. The Republic had begun the First Punic War without an overseas province. After the Second, it controlled Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica, and much of Iberia, and stood as the strongest power in the Western Mediterranean. Victory also changed Rome internally. Long service kept citizens away from farms. Devastation in Italy altered landholding. Enslaved captives entered agriculture, households, workshops, and mines in enormous numbers. Command abroad offered senators wealth and patronage. Tax collection and contracts created opportunities for equestrian businessmen. Greek teachers, books, statues, physicians, and philosophies moved through elite society. These changes were not caused by one battle or one policy. They accumulated through decades of mobilization. The republic that survived Hannibal had expanded the means through which later aristocrats could compete more violently. Carthage, meanwhile, remained visible across the sea. Its recovery created anxiety precisely because it obeyed the peace. The indemnity was paid. Agriculture flourished. Trade returned. Houses, workshops, temples, and docks continued. A city stripped of empire could still become rich. The recovery of Carthage during the next half-century deserves to be seen from inside the city rather than only through Roman alarm. The indemnity demanded annual payment, but Carthaginian agriculture was capable of remarkable productivity. The hinterland contained grain fields, vineyards, olive groves, orchards, and carefully managed estates. Farmers understood soils, grafting, irrigation, animals, and seasonal labor. Mago's later agricultural work became famous precisely because it organized knowledge developed in this environment. Merchants adapted to the loss of overseas empire. A city did not need to command every port in order to trade. Ships carried goods through networks now operating beneath Roman supremacy. Workshops produced textiles, metalwork, pottery, processed food, and objects for local and foreign markets. The harbor continued to place Carthage within Mediterranean movement. Sailors heard news from Sicily, Italy, Iberia, and the Eastern Sea. Roman traders could profit in a city Roman senators publicly feared. Economic exchange and political hostility did not cancel one another. Families rebuilt fortunes. Public offices continued. Religious festivals and funerary practices maintained identity. Punic inscriptions named people whose lives did not revolve around Rome, even though Roman treaty shaped the limits of their state. Children born after Zama grew to adulthood knowing Hannibal as memory rather than commander. Only a decade after the peace, Carthage offered to pay the remaining 40 years of the indemnity in one enormous sum. Rome refused to accept the money before it was due, preserving the annual payment and the relationship it represented. The installments continued until the final payment in 151 BCE. To some Romans, this financial recovery proved obedience and renewed prosperity. To others, it proved dangerous wealth. Massiniss's kingdom expanded beside this recovery. Roman support strengthened him, but he was not merely a Roman instrument. He pursued Numidian interests, consolidated communities, developed cities, and sought fertile land. Border disputes with Carthage therefore emerged from a genuine regional contest made unequal by Rome's role as judge. Carthaginian embassies repeatedly traveled to Rome with maps, testimony, and claims. Roman commissions visited Africa. The surviving record does not show Rome ruling for Massinissa in every dispute. Some interventions limited or rejected Numidian claims. Yet arbitration was slow, depended upon Roman priorities, and could leave occupied land unsettled while facts on the ground changed. A field cultivated by one family could become part of another kingdom through a judgment delivered far across the sea. The inability to defend territory damaged politics inside Carthage. One faction favored accommodation because war without Roman permission meant destruction. Another argued that endless surrender would leave no state worth preserving. Massinissa's supporters, opponents, commercial interests, rural landowners, and families associated with older military leadership competed. For ordinary people, the treaty's contradiction became practical. A border raid could take animals and harvest. Local authorities could not respond freely. Appeals to Rome required time, while the loss remained immediate. Restraint looked like weakness to neighbors and prudence to those remembering Zama. The final unauthorized war against Massinissa was therefore not a sudden return of Carthaginian imperial ambition. It came after decades in which the state watched territory erode beneath a clause Rome interpreted. The Carthaginian army that marched was defeated, showing how far military capacity had declined. Yet the decision gave Roman hawks the one act they needed to describe annihilation as enforcement of treaty. By then, Rome's strategic environment had changed completely. Macedon had been defeated. The Seleucid kingdom had been pushed back. Greece could not organize a Western challenge. Carthage possessed no great navy, no Iberian Empire, and no Hannibal. The fear used to justify the Third Punic War therefore belonged partly to memory and possibility rather than immediate capability. Romans saw walls, population, fields, and harbors and imagined what they might become under another extraordinary commander. Carthaginians saw the same things and called them home. Roman attitudes divided. Some senators believed Carthage's weakness and treaty dependence made it useful. Massinissa's Numidia could contain it. Commerce benefited the region. A destroyed city would offer no tribute and might upset balances Rome already controlled. Others treated prosperity itself as evidence that danger had not ended. Memories of Trasimene and Cannae did not fade simply because Hannibal was dead. Fathers told sons where relatives had fallen. Political speakers could summon fear with one name. Marcus Porcius Cato became the most famous voice demanding destruction. Cato had served during the Second Punic War and built his identity around austere Roman discipline. He distrusted luxury, Greek influence, political extravagance, and the moral softness he believed conquest brought. As censor, he attempted to regulate elite behavior and public standards. His hostility to Carthage joined strategic fear with a broader argument about Roman character. After visiting North Africa as part of an embassy, Cato reportedly displayed fresh Carthaginian figs in the Senate and remarked that the land producing them lay only a short voyage from Rome. Later tradition said he ended speeches on every subject with the demand that Carthage be destroyed. The famous Latin phrase Carthago delenda est may not preserve his exact repeated wording, but the campaign was real. Carthage's fields, population, and wealth were presented not as evidence of peaceful recovery, but as capacity waiting to become war. Scipio Nasica, according to tradition, argued the opposite. Carthage should remain because fear of a rival preserved Roman discipline. Without an external enemy, Romans might turn ambition against one another. The debate reveals that Carthage had become more than a military calculation. It was a mirror in which Romans imagined their own future. Massinissa kept increasing pressure. The peace treaty had forbidden Carthage from making war without Roman permission, while territorial disputes with Numidia were repeatedly referred to Rome. Massinissa occupied lands and tested boundaries. Roman decisions did not always favor him, but Carthage could not enforce its own interpretation or answer force with force while awaiting judgment. The arrangement contained a trap. If Carthage did not fight, Numidian encroachment could continue. If it fought, it violated the treaty. In the 150s BCE, Carthaginian factions struggled over how to respond. Leaders favoring resistance gained influence. In 151 or 150 BCE, Carthage raised an army against Massinissa without Roman authorization. The campaign ended badly. A Carthaginian force was surrounded, compelled to surrender, and then attacked during withdrawal. Rome now possessed the legal pretext its war party required. Carthage tried to remove it. The government condemned leaders associated with the war and sent envoys offering submission. Rome demanded hostages. 300 children from leading families were surrendered. The departure must have transformed the harbor into grief disguised as diplomacy. Parents delivered sons and daughters because refusal might bring immediate war. Roman officials accepted them and moved them away from Africa. The Carthaginians believed obedience could preserve the city. A Roman army sailed under the consuls in 149 BCE and landed at Utica, which had already defected. Carthaginian envoys came to receive the next demand. Rome ordered the surrender of weapons. The city complied. Ancient accounts list extraordinary quantities of armor, artillery, spears, and other equipment carried out to Roman camps. Workshops emptied. Storehouses opened. Carthage demonstrated that it had accepted helplessness. Then the consuls announced the final condition. The people could retain laws, property, and territory, but the city must be abandoned and rebuilt at least 10 miles from the sea. For Carthage, this was not relocation. The harbor, sanctuaries, graves, houses, workshops, streets, and relationship to the sea were the city. A new settlement inland would bear no continuity except survivors' bodies. Rome had demanded surrender before revealing that surrender would not save what mattered. The envoys protested, argued, and begged. The decision remained. When the news reached Carthage, submission ended. People attacked officials associated with surrender. Gates closed. A city that had handed away its weapons began preparing to fight the strongest military power in the Mediterranean. The siege of Carthage had begun in earnest. Carthage had surrendered the means of defense and now had to recreate them inside a closed city. Public buildings became workshops. Temples yielded metal. Household objects were melted. Men and women labored in shifts to produce shields, swords, spears, arrowheads, and artillery parts. Ancient writers claimed that women cut their hair for torsion ropes used in catapults. The detail may have been heightened by later drama, but the emergency mobilization was real. Enslaved people were freed for service. Walls were repaired. Food was counted. Messengers sought support in the countryside. Hasdrubal, who had commanded against Massinissa and had been condemned during earlier efforts to satisfy Rome, was recalled to leadership outside the city. Another Hasdrubal directed forces within. The Roman consuls had expected fear to complete what diplomacy began. They now faced defenses more determined because no negotiated future remained. Initial assaults failed. Carthaginian sorties burned or damaged siege equipment. Roman soldiers encountered walls, towers, ditches, and defenders who understood that defeat meant enslavement. Disease spread through camps during heat. Commanders competed, delayed, and made errors. The Third Punic War, imagined in Rome as the simple removal of a weakened enemy, became a prolonged siege. Carthage's geography favored defense. The city occupied a peninsula connected to the mainland by a narrower isthmus. The sea protected much of its perimeter. The harbors could receive or launch vessels as long as blockade remained incomplete. The bursa rose above dense neighborhoods. Walls were broad enough in places to contain interior spaces and stabling. Roman forces tried to isolate the city while Carthaginians maintained links with field armies and nearby settlements. Battles occurred around Lake Tunis, Nephoris, and approaches to the peninsula. Success in one sector did not immediately open another. Among the Roman officers was Scipio Aemilianus. He was the natural son of Lucius Aemilius Paulus, victor over Macedon, and had been adopted into the Scipionic family. Through adoption, he became connected to the name of Scipio Africanus, whose victory had ended the Second Punic War. He had also served in Spain and gained a reputation for discipline and courage. During early operations at Carthage, he distinguished himself by rescuing endangered troops and maintaining order when others failed. Soldiers trusted him. Political supporters in Rome recognized the value of his name and record. In 147 BCE, he sought the aedileship, an office appropriate to his age. Popular pressure instead carried him toward the consulship, though he was younger than legal requirements. The rules were suspended. Rome had repeatedly condemned extraordinary command and repeatedly created it when ordinary command disappointed. Scipio returned to Africa with supreme authority. He began by restoring discipline. Soldiers and camp followers engaged in trade, idleness, and private plunder were expelled or controlled. Equipment was inspected. Posts were reorganized. The army was reminded that Carthage would not fall because Romans had declared it doomed. He tightened the blockade across the isthmus, constructing lines that limited movement and supply. Carthaginian hunger worsened. Hasdrubal used fear to maintain control within the city, and Roman accounts accuse him of torturing prisoners upon the walls where besiegers could see. Such stories served to justify vengeance, but conditions inside a starving city were undoubtedly brutal. Carthage still possessed one path to the sea through its harbor entrance. Scipio ordered a massive mole built to close it. Stones and earth were carried into water under attack. The work advanced slowly, a new strip of land created by labor. The Carthaginians responded with an engineering surprise. Hidden behind the walls, they cut a new channel from the military harbor to open sea. They also built ships from remaining timber. When the passage was complete, a fleet emerged where Romans believed no exit existed. For a moment, the besieged city recovered the identity from which Rome had tried to separate it. Carthaginian ships entered the Mediterranean through a harbor opened by people who had surrendered their navy and been ordered away from the coast. The fleet did not break the siege. A naval engagement ended without decisive escape, and Roman forces eventually gained control near the harbor. But the achievement revealed the endurance of technical knowledge, organization, and hope inside the city. The siege altered the rhythm of time inside Carthage. At first, inhabitants could measure progress through production, a certain number of shields completed, a wall repaired, a Roman tower burned, a ship launched through the new channel. Work gave fear a purpose. Every household contributed metal, cloth, labor, food, or bodies. As blockade tightened, measurement changed. Rations became smaller. Grain was hidden, searched for, and distributed through authority increasingly difficult to trust. Prices lost ordinary meaning when goods could not be replaced. The wealthy might preserve stores longer, but hunger eventually ignored rank. Parents decided how food should be divided among children and defenders. Sick people consumed supplies without being able to work, creating choices no public speech could make noble. The dead had to be removed while strength remained. Water, sanitation, and smoke turned crowded neighborhoods into places where disease could defeat people untouched by Roman weapons. The city's government continued under extreme pressure. Orders had to move, workshops had to receive materials, guards had to be assigned, and accusations of betrayal had to be judged. Hasdrubal's harshness may have grown from fear that one open gate would end everyone. Terror inside the walls became the shadow of terror outside them. Roman camp life also contained waiting rather than constant assault. Soldiers dug, carried stone for the mole, guarded trenches, repaired weapons, and watched the same walls through changing seasons. Disease and boredom could destroy discipline. Traders and camp followers offered food, drink, gambling, sex, and opportunities to sell plunder not yet officially won. Scipio's expulsions and inspections were therefore strategic. A siege army had to remain more organized than the starving city for longer than courage alone could last. He understood that Carthage's walls were not the only defense. Roman carelessness could preserve them. The mole across the harbor entrance required thousands of repetitive movements. Stones had to be quarried, transported, and dropped where water swallowed evidence of progress. Carthaginian missiles struck workers. Waves shifted material. Each day the structure extended a little farther. Inside, the secret channel demanded equal coordination. Noise and removed earth had to be concealed. Timber reserved for survival became hulls. Rowers and crews trained with limited water. When the fleet emerged, the psychological victory may briefly have mattered as much as the military one. The people of Carthage could see ships upon the sea again. That hope made the final reduction more terrible. The city did not fall because defenders had ceased trying. It fell after almost every improvisation had been answered by greater Roman resources. Scipio captured the outer harbor and established positions from which the inner defenses could be attacked. A stretch of wall and quay changed hands. The final approach had begun. Before entering the city completely, he targeted the field army at Nephoris, cutting another source of support. Roman forces destroyed the camp and killed or captured defenders. Carthage stood alone. By early 146 BCE, hunger had transformed daily life. Grain disappeared. Animals vanished from streets. Families weakened behind doors. Soldiers guarded food as carefully as walls. Disease moved through crowded rooms. Funeral customs became impossible. Bodies remained near the living. The Romans prepared the final assault. They entered near the harbor and advanced toward the Bursa through 3 streets lined with buildings several stories high. Defenders fought from windows and roofs. Missiles fell from above. Roman soldiers forced entrances, climbed stairs, broke through walls, and crossed planks from roof to roof. Scipio ordered buildings set on fire or cleared to open routes. Flames killed defenders and civilians together. Structures collapsed into lanes. Roman work parties removed bodies and rubble so troops could continue. Accounts describe men still alive beneath the dead being dragged aside or crushed by advancing equipment. The battle lasted 6 days and nights. This was not Cannae, where formation and maneuver decided an army in hours. It was the dismantling of a city room by room. Roman discipline faced people who could retreat only toward the center. Every house briefly became a fortress and then part of the road behind the attackers. At last, survivors concentrated at the Bursa and in the Temple of Eshmun. Tens of thousands, weakened by hunger, asked for life. Scipio allowed those who came out to survive as captives. They descended from the height and passed into Roman control. Hasdrubal, the commander within the city, surrendered separately and received mercy. The story of his wife followed. From the temple, she denounced him for saving himself while Carthage burned. She killed their sons and entered the flames with others who refused surrender. The story was preserved by Appian centuries later and may have been shaped into moral theater. Yet its emotional truth belongs to the final hours. Some inhabitants considered death less terrible than the future Rome offered. The fighting ended. Carthage was plundered. Gold, silver, sacred objects, and private wealth were collected. Scipio ordered stolen offerings recognizable from Sicilian cities to be returned. turning Roman victory into a partial correction of older Carthaginian conquests. The gesture did not restore Carthaginian households whose property now changed owners. Survivors were sold into slavery. Ancient sources give a figure of 50,000, though exact numbers cannot be verified. A population that had governed, traded, worshipped, argued, married, and remembered itself as citizens became merchandise distributed across the victorious world. The Senate had instructed that the city be destroyed. Fire continued for days. Walls and structures were demolished. The ground was dedicated through ritual curse against rebuilding a rival state. The later claim that Romans plowed salt into the soil is not supported by ancient evidence. It arose much later, perhaps because salt offered a vivid symbol of permanent barrenness. Rome did not need salt to make its intention clear. The Carthaginian political community was ended. Its territory became the Roman province of Africa. A boundary marked the land granted to Rome and the kingdom of Numidia. Utica, which had defected before the war, benefited and served as an administrative center. Scipio received the name Africanus like his adoptive grandfather before him, becoming Scipio Aemilianus Africanus. He had completed a family story begun at Zama. Then he looked upon the ruins and wept. Polybius's account gives the tears unusual authority because he stood close enough to ask why. Scipio had spent years within Greek historical thought, where cities rose and fell under fortune. Troy, Persia, Macedon, and other powers had believed their strength permanent. Carthage had once ruled the sea and nearly broken Rome. Now its smoke reached the victor. He imagined Rome under the same judgment. The thought did not stop destruction. Scipio performed the policy entrusted to him and accepted triumph. Reflection and responsibility occupied the same man. That contradiction belonged to Rome's victory more broadly. The Republic had survived the Punic Wars through qualities worthy of admiration: shared sacrifice, capacity to replace leaders, willingness to adapt, an alliance network stronger than Hannibal expected, and refusal to allow one disaster to define the future. It also won through confiscation, enslavement, exemplary punishment, and an ability to demand human resources across Italy on a scale Carthage could not match. Rome's manpower advantage was not simply a larger number written on a census. It was political organization. Defeated allies still supplied troops. Colonies guarded roads. Citizens accepted repeated levies because military service, land, honor, obligation, and fear bound them to the state. The Senate could lose members and continue because authority belonged to a body, not one commander. Carthage possessed deep resources of its own. It fielded multi-ethnic armies with cavalry and infantry abilities Rome struggled to equal. It produced Hamilcar, Hannibal, Hasdrubal, and skilled admirals. Its merchants, farmers, artisans, and sailors sustained repeated recovery. Its failure cannot be reduced to mercenaries who cared only for pay or politicians who refused every reinforcement. The two republics organized war differently. Hannibal's authority over his army was intensely personal and remarkably effective. Rome's authority over its system was distributed. If Hannibal died or became isolated, no other commander could simply reproduce his position. If one Roman consul died, elections and appointments produced another. Carthaginian policy also operated across competing theaters and family interests. The Barcid power base in Iberia gave Hannibal resources, but may have made coordination with the government at Carthage more complicated. Rome's Senate contained rivalry too. Yet after Cannae, enough of the elite accepted a shared strategy of endurance. The Italian alliance proved decisive. Hannibal expected military defeat to detach communities. Some did defect, but the central structure survived. Rome's punishment of Capua demonstrated the cost of choosing wrong. Its continued ability to protect or recover places showed that time favored the Republic. Naval power mattered even during the war remembered for the Alps. Rome could move forces to Iberia, Sicily, and Africa, while limiting large Carthaginian reinforcement of Italy. The fleets built during the First Punic War changed what was possible in the Second. Money mattered. Silver from Iberia supported Carthage until Scipio seized New Carthage and dismantled the Barcid position. Roman loans, taxes, allied contributions, captured wealth, and public credit financed replacement armies. Victory belonged partly to states capable of converting fields, mines, contracts, and trust into years of continued violence. Luck mattered. Hannibal survived mountain crossings, wounds, and campaigns. Roman commanders intercepted Hasdrubal's messages before the brothers united. Political decisions in Syracuse, Numidia, and Italian cities might have shifted differently. Storms destroyed fleets without regard for courage. Disease removed men whom battle spared. No one cause explains 118 years. The Punic Wars became a test of systems through the lives of individuals, and a test of individuals inside systems they could not completely control. For Rome, victory opened the Mediterranean. In the same year Carthage fell, Roman forces destroyed Corinth in Greece. The coincidence astonished ancient observers. One city represented the Western rival that had once invaded Italy. The other belonged to the Greek world whose art, literature, and political traditions Rome increasingly absorbed. Both burned under Roman command. The Republic now possessed provinces and influence stretching across regions its earlier institutions had never been designed to manage. Governors held armies and financial power far from home. Tax contracts became sources of wealth. Triumphs brought treasure and captives into Rome. Competition for commands intensified because the rewards of victory had grown. Small farmers had not simply vanished during the wars, and the social transformation was more complicated than later moral stories suggested. Yet long service, debt, displacement, land concentration, and enslaved labor changed rural Italy. Veterans returned to find households altered. Wealthy owners acquired property. Urban populations grew. Political leaders later argued over land distribution because conquest had reshaped who possessed the ground from which citizen armies were drawn. The Gracchi would attempt reform. Marius would alter recruitment and military careers. Sulla would march upon Rome and revive proscriptions. Pompey, Caesar, and others would command armies attached to personal futures. The republic that had survived Hannibal would eventually be wounded by the scale of power victory made available to its own generals. Scipio's fear above Carthage was therefore not prophecy in the simple sense that Rome would soon be burned by a foreign conqueror. It was recognition that success changes the victor. Carthage's influence did not disappear as completely as Roman destruction intended. People speaking Punic remained across North Africa. Religious practices continued and changed under Roman rule. Inscriptions show the language surviving for centuries. Agricultural knowledge associated with the Carthaginian writer Mago impressed the Romans so deeply that, even while destroying the city, the Senate ordered his extensive work translated into Latin. The choice is revealing. Rome eliminated Carthaginian political independence and preserved Carthaginian expertise useful to Roman landowners. Centuries later, a new city rose on or near the site. Julius Caesar planned a colony. Augustus developed Roman Carthage into one of the great cities of the empire. Its African grain and oil fed Mediterranean markets. Baths, forums, temples, houses, and Christian churches occupied ground once condemned. The place refused permanent emptiness. But Roman Carthage was not the republic Scipio destroyed. Its citizens used Roman institutions. Latin spread beside surviving Punic speech. The harbors served another empire. The continuity was geographical and human, not political. Most Carthaginian literature was lost. We know the city largely through Greek and Roman authors who fought it, feared it, admired parts of it, and explained its defeat through their own moral concerns. Archaeology recovers houses, graves, workshops, harbors, inscriptions, pottery, religious spaces, and the ordinary objects hostile narratives ignored. The evidence complicates caricature. Carthage was not merely a wealthy city hiring foreigners to fight. It had citizens, institutions, rural territory, subject communities, families, and a cultural identity able to survive defeat for generations. Roman accusations about child sacrifice remain debated in interpretation, though archaeological evidence from Tophets confirms distinctive rituals involving cremated remains of children and animals. The meaning, scale, and circumstances cannot be reduced to the sensational certainty of enemy propaganda. Rome also became more than the stern civic ideal praised by later writers. Its Senate could refuse peace after Cannae and later manufacture an ultimatum designed to destroy a compliant city. Resilience in defense did not guarantee restraint and supremacy. The Third Punic War was not necessary for Roman survival in the way the Second had been. Polybius himself judged Rome's conduct toward Carthage with severity, noting that the city had accepted demands and committed no immediate offense proportionate to annihilation. Fear had outlived danger and become policy. Cato died before seeing Carthage fall. Massinissa died near the beginning of the war, extremely old, after a lifetime in which his cavalry helped Carthage, then Rome, and his kingdom helped provoke the final crisis. Hannibal and Scipio Africanus were already gone. The last war was completed by a younger Scipio carrying inherited names into a conflict created by inherited fear. Across the century, family memory repeatedly directed public choice. The Barcids remembered Sardinia and defeat. Roman families remembered lost consuls and Cannae. Scipios inherited commands and expectations. Cities remembered which side had punished or protected them. History moved not only through treaties and resources, but through stories people believed about the dead. Return once more to the hill above Carthage. Below Scipio, smoke conceals the streets. Soldiers search ruins. Captives wait under guard. The harbor that once carried merchant ships and fleets lies within Roman control. Somewhere beneath collapsed houses are tablets, contracts, family possessions, tools, and sacred objects whose owners will never return. Polybius watches the general's face. Scipio quotes the fall of Troy because Homer gives him words large enough for the moment. He does not say Rome will fall tomorrow. He understands that Rome has entered the category of powers great enough to imagine themselves exempt from history. Carthage had once been the city looking outward from safe walls while enemies failed beneath them. It had survived Sicilian wars, invasion by Regulus, revolt by its own unpaid troops, and defeat at Zama. Prosperity returned so convincingly that Rome treated recovery as threat. Now recovery appears impossible. Yet even this ending is incomplete. Punic words continue in North Africa. Roman farmers study Mago. A later Carthage rises. Archaeologists uncover districts and reconstruct harbors. The defeated city enters memory through the empire that destroyed it. Rome's ending lies farther away, beyond republic, emperors, division, transformation, and other fires. Scipio cannot see its form. He sees only the rule beneath every triumph. No victory cancels time. The Punic Wars began when Rome crossed a narrow strait to protect violent men in Messana. No senator voting for intervention could see Hannibal descending from the Alps, prisoners waiting after Cannae, ships burning at New Carthage, elephants running at Zama, hostages leaving Carthaginian families, or children carried into the temple above a dying city. Each government made decisions meant to solve the danger nearest at hand. Send troops to Messana. Build a fleet. Demand Sardinia. Expand in Iberia. Attack Saguntum. Refuse surrender of Hannibal. Cross the Alps. Refuse peace after Cannae. Invade Africa. Forbid Carthage to defend itself. Demand its people leave the sea. No single decision contained the whole destruction. Together, they made return increasingly difficult. Rome won because it could turn citizens, allies, money, institutions, fear, and repeated loss into another army. It won because it learned to fight at sea, denied Hannibal the political collapse he needed, attacked Carthaginian power in Iberia, prevented reinforcements from joining him, allied with Messana, and finally carried war to Africa. Carthage lost despite commanders and armies capable of extraordinary achievement. It lost the long contest of replacement and alliance. It could defeat Roman forces more easily than it could dismantle the system producing them. But victory did not prove every Roman decision wise or just. The republic that refused peace after Cannae preserved itself. The republic that destroyed Carthage after it had surrendered its weapons revealed what preservation had become. Between those two moments lies the moral distance of the Punic Wars. Scipio's tears do not erase the city below. They keep the victory from becoming simple. The flames rise. The soldiers continue their work. Polybius remembers the words. Across the sea, Rome waits for news that its oldest fear has ended. The message will arrive. Bells, speeches, sacrifice, and triumph will follow. Citizens will believe the future has opened. Above the ruins, the conqueror has already understood that every open future contains an end. The day came for Carthage. One day, in another form, it would come for Rome. Sleep well. Good night.